Hello and welcome to episode 317 of the Total Saints podcast, your home for all things Southampton Football Club. A huge thank you to our TSP Patreon community because we couldn't make the show each week without your support. And on that note, a welcome to Simon Austin and Russell Budden, who recently joined our TSP supporter and Bobby Stokes tiers on YouTube. So thank you, chaps. We really appreciate your support. Coming up this week on the podcast, Aston Villa was always going to be a tough game for the new men in charge, but the result was as predictable as ever. Going to review the latest 3-0 defeat and see what impact Simon Rusk had on the team. And as we chalk off the games like a prisoner counting down to release day, it's 6 to go with West Ham away next. So we'll preview that one for you. My name is Martin Starke, and joining me this week, Alfie House is senior Southampton reporter for the Daily Echo, and Glen is writer of the blog League One -10. So there was a new man in charge, but there was a very familiar feeling to the result. 3-0, the final score to Aston Villa on Saturday. Kind of predictable as ever. Alfie, Simon Rusk and Adam Lallana, what kind of impact did they have on the game?
Yeah, what kind of impact did they have on the game? Well, Simon Rusk before the match was quite clear about what the MO was, I suppose, in his press conference. And he said it's more about confidence and mentality than it is about identity and style at this point for him. And, you know, he's been given this brief of 7 games to try and get a couple of points, basically. And he picked the team, which, to be fair, I thought was pretty much what I expected. He obviously went to a 5 at the back with the usual 5 suspects that we probably would have all predicted. He put Matty Fernandez alongside Leslie in midfield. Obviously, Flynn Down still suspended. And that meant there was a 3 up front, which surprised me. I thought they'd go for a 2. So they had Cameron Archer and Kamaldeen Sulemana, I believe, flanking Paul Amo-Ameyaw. And I felt for the first half that actually the shape looked good. You know, Aston Villa didn't have very much. I mean, not much happened in that first half, let's be clear. It was 0-0 by the break. But Saints had the biggest chance. About 15 minutes in, Cameron Archer and Kamaldeen Sulemana were getting in that sort of, I don't use technical terms, but that half space between the fullback and the centre-back. Paul Amo-Ameyaw didn't have a great day, but he was something for them to aim for. And it was Cameron Archer who got in behind and had a real good chance to actually just square it to Paul and make it 1-0. And they should have taken the lead. I think it was Carl Walker-Peters who played them in. So I liked what I was seeing. And Villa had very little by half-time. They had very little by sort of 60, 70 minutes. But then I think they had to make a change at halftime. Paul had a bit of an ankle injury. They brought on Tyler Dibbling, and they started to lose that shape. And then, as we've seen this season, the whole season, every time they've made changes, the team got worse. And I think it doesn't matter who Saints pick to start the game; they get worse every single time they make a change. And that continued. And then, we had an individual error leading to Jan Bednarek making a slide tackle to give a penalty away in the 72nd minute. You think, okay, here we go. But Ramsdale saved that penalty, and then Saints still found a way to be 3-0 down 20 minutes later. So you think, it's just an absolute nightmare. And then the first goal was naivety, giving the ball away high up the pitch, and then 2 bits of quality. The finish from Ollie Watkins is unbelievable. Second goal, it's 2 passes again from the midfield. Donyell Marlin down the right. It's an easy finish, really, past Ramsdale. And then the third one is another penalty. Ramsdale saved it again, unbelievably. But you can see the difference there, because when Ramsdale saved the first penalty, everybody was alive. They were alert. Jack Stevens was first to it. He got rid of it. The second penalty in 90th minute, nobody even bothered. They all just stood there on the edge of the box. So they knew the game was over, and the game was over. But that meant that John McGinn could go and finish it. So, 0-0 in 72 minutes and 3-0 by full time. It's maybe the result that we all thought was most likely, or, certainly the scoreline. But you just think that if your keeper saves 2 penalties, particularly one to keep it 0-0, you should have a chance. But they just collapsed. And obviously Aston Villa have got a lot of quality. They made a couple of changes for the Champions League, but their team still looks good. So familiar sinking feeling, unfortunately.
Well, we did say, Glenn, didn't we? They might have one eye on the PSG game, and even so, I think you were quick to highlight this last week. Even so, they probably will still steamroller us, and that turned out to be the case. Were you expecting a return to the back 5? It kind of felt like we were talking about the Simon Rusk team, weren't we? And that game against Fulham, and how he was going to try and keep things a little bit tighter, and it kind of worked for a bit.
I thought the first half was okay, bearing in mind the standard of the opposition that we're playing. We set out to keep it tight. Yes, it's not going to live long in the memory, that first half, because nothing much happened at either end of the pitch. As Alfie's quite correctly pointed out, we had the best chances. We not only had that one that Archer didn't get across to Amo-Ameyaw, we had a couple of great crossing positions for Ryan Manning where we had players in the middle and he scudded the cross 6 inches along the ground and it just got cleared. It's just garbage, really. Put a proper cross in, fire it in low or cross it, but don't just weakly sort of clip it 6 inches off the ground. That's just rubbish. So at half time, I thought it was going okay. It's clear that we would have been happy with 0-0, and we were more or less hoping to score rather than having a plan, particularly after Paul went off. Not that I thought Tyler Diblin did badly, but it moved Cameron Archer into the middle where it just doesn't do anything. Basically, just gives the ball away constantly, never holds it up, never does anything. And the second half was the tale of two benches. It completely was. They brought on 3 goal scorers, which apparently is the first time that's ever happened in the Premier League.
Yeah, the records continue to fall. Yeah,
and I mean, what I'm about to say, this is not Will Smallbone's fault. It really isn't. It's the manager's fault for thinking that Will Smallbone can play in a midfield too. And he can't. He just can't. It's so obvious, and yet we've got Simon Rusk has done it. Even Uric has done it. Russell Martin has done it. It got proved halfway through last season. He can't do it. He's just not athletic enough. Hasn't got the defensive discipline to do it. And the midfield, it seems to be underappreciated just how important that is to the defensive effort. I thought Matty Fernandez had a tremendous game defensively in there. I thought him and Leslie were excellent in stopping most of the stuff getting through to the to Villa's attackers. You didn't see Rashford in the first half at all. And I just thought that the midfield was fine, but it was a voluntary decision to move Fernandez out of there and put Smallbone in there. And within a minute, we've given away a penalty, which was caused by a bad touch. And we get away with that. And then the first goal, Tielemans has the ball. There's no pressure on him at all. And he, always said, I could still play football now if no one pressed me. Be easy. But Tielemans just dinks the ball over the top. It's a brilliant ball. It's a brilliant finish by Watkins, but no midfield putting any pressure on at all. Second goal, pulled out of position. Leslie's left there on his own. The ball gets passed through. One pass later, Marlon scores. So we've killed the game. And I do feel there are a lot of good things about the first 70 minutes. But again, I feel like our management have taken the gun and shot themselves. We haven't got good enough substitutes to make tactical switches. If we've got a starting 11 that's doing well, leave it there. Fernandez didn't need to come off or go up front, so leave him there. Leave the parts of the team that are working, leave them there. If you want to make the sub and take Sulemana off, you should have brought Robinson on at that point, or put someone else on the wing. Moving Fernandez for me was just absolutely killed us.
But they must be getting either fed data to say that they're flagging and they've got to come off, or there must be, because Simon Rusk isn't someone that's just come into the club fresh, is he? He's not learning things for the first time. He's been around since the start of the season. So there's got to be a reason, but I can't quite unpick what that is and why they feel the need to change the team.
If you need to take Sulemana off, then take Sulemana off, but don't disrupt the midfield, which was working perfectly okay, in order to do it. I mean, we all know that we want Downs and Leslie Ukachukwu as the 2 central midfielders. Downs isn't available, so he put Fernandez there, which I thought was a bit of a risk. But I mean, I expected Joe Aribo to play, to be honest. But Fernandez did a really, really good job there. Some of his passing going forwards wasn't fantastic, but I thought defensively he really helped with the whole effort, which is what Rusk's game plan was all about. And then on 70 whatever minutes it was, it's just like, well, we're going to abandon that and put a different player in there. It's been proven not to work lots of times. Why are we still doing it? So that did my head in. Having said that, I thought the first 70 minutes, considering we were playing against a very good team, I thought was okay. And I echo what Alfie says. It's Aaron Ramsdale must, with every passing game, he must he must think, what the hell am I doing here? And and when we're talking about counting down the games, he must be counting down the games. And I don't think I don't think I will ever have been more supportive of a player getting a good move away from us than him, and he deserves it. And
served his time.
Yeah, and people are saying he's not worth the money we're paying him. Well, if you think he's the problem, then I question what you're watching, to be honest. I thought he was.
Well, he hasn't been worth the money we're paying him, but that's not his fault. It's the other people around him that have made him not worth the money they're paying him.
The subs thing is an age-old problem, though, Alfie, isn't it? Because you can guarantee, and I said at the start, it was quite predictable. Like, that once we concede one, we're going to collapse, and it'd be 2 or 3. And every week, the subs seem to make that team worse. And it's just a case of we've got plenty of players in the squad, but the quality really is not there, and that is just highlighted when we make the changes.
Yeah, I mean, no team in the Premier League has made more substitutions this season than Southampton. But I mean, between us here, how many can we think of that worked? I mean, it must be very few. It's just the case of the squad not being very good, isn't it? Let's be totally honest. Like Glen made the really good point of Aston Villa bring on, all right, they've rotated them for a reason, but they bring on 3 players who go and score goals. One of them scored a goal in the European semi-final. John McGinn's a top player, and Donny Ahmad, and they signed in January for decent money. So they're bringing on totally different players. And I just think, it reminds me of when Ivan Juric brought on Jack Stevens in the last minute of the game to play up front. And you think, like, what's the moron doing? But then you look at the bench, well, there's nobody better. There's nobody else. Doesn't have any other choices. So he's got to bring someone on. So, I feel for the managers in that regard. But I totally agree with Glenn's point. If something's working, why change it? And I felt that with Matty Fernandes as well. I also thought Oribe would play. But what he did, it's just the energy, I think. Between Leslie and Matty, there's enough energy there. And like I say, he took that away with Will coming on. I like him. He's a good player. But, we've seen him in a 2 before. It doesn't work.
Let's get your views on the goals then, Glenn, and the penalties. I thought one of them in particular seemed a bit harsh. The referee getting a lot of stick yesterday. Your take on those?
Well, I thought the referee was terrible. Just seemed to referee things completely differently depending on what was going on. I mean, Morgan Rogers, was it? Just collapses in a heap on the ground. No one near him. Stops the game. Gives him a free kick. Are you all right? Paul Onuachu gets smashed into the advertising boards, and it's like, play on. And so I thought the refereeing was strange. Personally, I don't have an issue with either penalty decision. I've only really seen them in real time. Again, it's right in front of where I sit. The first one, absolutely 100% penalty, nowhere near the ball. The second one, he doesn't get the ball, and you can see the leg that he hasn't stuck out, he kind of catches McGinn and folds him over. And I don't really have an issue with either. It was the challenge at the end by Stevens was a really tired, 94th minute challenge after a load of concentrating. And ultimately, it doesn't matter other than, obviously Ramsdale saved it again, which was a good moment for a second. But yeah, it was remarkable watching. I think it was 4 of our players just stood on the edge of the box watching McGinn score.
That was crap, wasn't it? That was so bad.
So bad. And it's not backing up your goalkeeper at all.
And he was fuming.
Oh yeah, and I don't blame him.
By the way. Yeah,
I don't blame him in the slightest. So yeah, I mean the first goal, as I said, it was a great ball by Tielemans, great run by Watkins, and a fabulous finish. And that on its own is a fantastic goal. But you can't let a player as good as Tielemans have that much time and space to play whatever pass he wants. Second goal. Smallbone actually tries to win the ball higher up the pitch. It, of course, doesn't win it. They pass it round him, and then we're stretched because he's come out of the midfield too. If you've got 3-man midfield, you can probably cover it, but Leslie then has to come off his man, and it just gets then from then on it's a training drill. It's like we're outnumbering them. It's an overload drill almost. We'll just pass to the wing, bang, goal. Good finish. Ramsdale, no chance. I can't really remember how the third goal came about, but I think it was just sort of like a steady build up with us not really hassling, not really putting challenges in, not getting close, and they just passed it through, and then the foul happened. And it's a shame because I thought Stevens had a really good game, It's just a shame he blotted it a little bit with that last minute challenge. But despite what the idiot who sits behind me thinks, he actually had a really good game. And
I mean, the defence looks better with him, and he will be picked. He'll be those three picked every game now, I imagine, for the final 7.
Yeah.
It's nice there's an idiot that sits behind you as well. There were a couple of things to talk about from the bench, though, Alfie. I mean, it wasn't brilliant, obviously, but half an hour for Ross Stewart, which is maybe a positive. But the other one is, of course, the debut for Jay Robinson. Nice to see someone coming on and making their debut and getting a good reception too.
Yeah, well, I suppose on Ross Stewart first, you almost think, I almost sit there and think, what's the point? Like, obviously great for him. Like, I hope he comes on and gets through it all absolutely fine. But you almost just think, why not just wrap him in cotton wool and just keep him training at his best intensity for the rest of the season and go from the start next year? I'm sure that the physios will tell me that isn't how match fitness works, and I'm probably wrong. But you just think you don't want to hear the news that he's injured himself again. He would have been the perfect substitute for Amo-Ameyaw. I mean, Amo-Ameyaw obviously had to come off because of this ankle concern. He is the most like-for-like replacement for him rather than moving Archer in, but clearly 45 minutes would have been too much for him. And I think he did bring him on, in the 61st minute. He's probably as early as he could have done to try and sort of correct that. And like I say, didn't do too much in the game, but for him now, it's just about keeping fit, and hopefully he's an option for us next season. It's obviously been tough for him. But yeah, for Jay Robinson, we obviously sort of reported last week that he's now a first team player. He's on the first team schedule. He's not training with the 21s anymore. So I think we expected that debut to come. It's coming maybe a little bit earlier than I thought. He's now got an opportunity to pick up, maybe 5, 6 or 7 appearances by the end of the season, which would be kind of crazy for him if he does. I think he only had a couple of minutes on the pitch, didn't have sort of too much to do. I mean, I think he was down that side when the penalty came through. Glenn's talking about the lack of tackles. I think there is a moment where he's almost grasping at straws trying to get to his player. But he's only a young lad. He's just come on into a difficult situation, and he's got a lot of learning and growing to do. But he's somebody who I really rate. He's a really technical player. He's pretty quick. I see him as a wide forward, so he works in this Simon Rusk system if he continues with this 5-2-3. I don't expect him to be playing any big minutes anytime soon, but he's the next one up on the academy, and that's a real positive.
The trouble we've got now, Glenn, is that every game is going to be a difficult situation for these young lads to come in. But we're crying out to see them because we need to see something interesting and maybe a few shoots of hope for next season. Well,
is it difficult? There's nothing riding on the games. I mean, it's difficult because we're crap and the other team are going to be better than us. But
we're going to be 2 or 3 goals down when they come on.
Yeah, there's no, you can take a player on and lose the ball. If we're if we were 2-0 down, I think when Robinson came on, if he loses the ball at the end of the day, it's a bit of a risk-free environment for him. So I don't really see it like that. I mean, I don't think off the top of my head there is anyone else in that under 21s or just below the first team who's like ready to be promoted. Robinson's certainly been the one that people are talking about. I don't know if the French centre half Kai Sander, whether he be one to come on.
Maybe not yet for him.
Yeah,
I mean, the couple that I've sort of pointed out in my article was there's a lad called Moses Sesse, sort of centre midfielder or a fullback who I really like. I think he physically could hack it, so I'd like to see him given a go, maybe, and maybe Cam Bragg as a reward for being there for so long. But yeah, you're right. Jay is the one who you look at next season, probably going to be in the first team squad.
Yeah, and I mean Ross Stewart was. I mean, he was pretty terrible, to be honest. His first touch was awful, but then he hasn't played for the best part of 3 years. So he's going to be as rusty as you could possibly be as a professional footballer. And the bottom line, I don't think him coming on made any sort of real negative impact on why we conceded 3 goals. So, I mean, I just hope with him, all the talk about how good he was at championship level comes to fruition, because even though he's done nothing for Saints, and if he left tomorrow, give it a couple of years, no one would even remember him being here. But you just hope that from a human perspective, he can stay fit and actually contribute something next season. But I wouldn't put money on it. I just sort of think if a player's had that many injuries and been out for that long, it's going to be very difficult to get fit and stay fit. But yeah, let's hope for his sake that it comes together.
Well, I mentioned the records that continued to fall. As I think Alfie pointed out, Villa became the first team in the Premier League in the history of the league to have 3 different substitutes score in a single game. So that was nice. We've now lost 26 of our 32 Premier League games in a season. That's the most defeats across a single league campaign in our history. I think I read 13 home defeats is also a club record in the top flight. So it just keeps on getting better at the moment. There was a standout performance, though, I think. I was going to ask about TSP Player of the Week, and I thought, honestly, did we just cancel it? But there was somebody that would probably score more than 5 or 6 out of 10. I must say, Fernandes won last week. 5th time for him this season. He's now 2nd behind Dibbling and, of course, Ramsdale. Now, if it's all right with you two, I'm thinking that we don't have a vote this week and we just give it to Ramsdale again.
Yeah.
I'd say
go on, Glen.
No, I'd say Ramsdale and Jack Stevens. I thought was decent, and Fernandes. They're the 3 that I've kind of written down, and Adam Lallana for managing to complete 90 minutes, even if it was in the technical area.
Alfie, did you do your ratings this week, or did George do them?
George did the ratings. I haven't looked at them, but I can only imagine Ramsdale was the only, really respectable one. Like Glenn says, a couple of other decent performers there. But I was really surprised. I was waiting in the mix zone for a player to be brought out for an interview yesterday. And I was really surprised when I saw Leslie walk around the corner. So I thought Aaron Ramsdale was an absolute shoo-in for an interview after that one. Such an easy narrative. But no, Leslie came out. Leslie's good, to be fair. I like Leslie. But yeah, I just couldn't believe that Ramsdale wasn't paraded, to be honest.
All right, so let's do Ramsdale, let's do Stevens, and then we'll do Fernandes then. So we'll get 3 players on for the Player of the Week vote. Anything else on Villa? Anything I've missed, chaps? We've done the referee, we've done the penalties, we've done the goals.
It's just one game ticked off, isn't it? It's one more game ticked off. I don't think
they are at the moment.
I don't think anyone really expected to get anything out of it. Villa are just, they're one of the better teams. We're gonna. Which is a nice little segue into West Ham, who we've got next, who are not one of the better teams. And, like when we played Wolves the other week, this is a game against someone not in the bottom 3 who, we have to go out and think we got a chance of getting something from this game because, they're not very good either. But, we just have to go out there and see if they're not very good is far too good for us. I suspect it will be.
Let me just mention a little social event that we're going to be holding. We're going to be heading to Steamtown Brewery in Eastleigh for our next TSP social. Now, we're not recording a podcast. There's no need to buy a ticket in advance or register online or anything like that. It's just turn up, have a beer or a soft drink. Drown your sorrows, buy Glen a pint and chat about football. Wow. And now this is going on April the 26th. So that's Saturday, April the 26th. We're going to go there after the home match against Fulham. And if you're not aware of Steamtown Brewery, it's right next to the train station in Eastleigh, so it's quite easy to get to by train. There's also some parking just across the road. We'll have all the details on our Total Saints Pilsner as well, and there'll be some deals if you want to grab some of the Pilsner as well. That's been flying out the door, and they've of course kindly been sponsoring TSP this season. So you can come along, meet some of the guys from Steamtown. We're all going to be there, and join us for a bit of a beer and just get a few things off your chest, really. So we'll get those details on the website, and of course, if you're a patron, that'll be on your email as well.
I should say on the Pilsner, by the way.
Have you got any left? Because I've run out.
No, I left a crate of 24 at my partner's sort of family's house back in Somerset, and they had some kind of barbecue. And the reviews I've got are genuinely rave. Everyone's been absolutely loving it. It's a fruity twist, and but yeah, they've been really enjoying it. So if you haven't tried it, it's probably worth a go.
I had the awkward conversation when the fridge was empty, and the other half said, "But you got those 24 cans that you've got in the cupboard." I was like, "No, I haven't." No. So it's a chance to stock up as well. Right, West Ham then. There are probably a few grounds that will miss next season, and West Ham isn't one of them, but it is the final trip to the London Stadium on Saturday to face the Hammers. The reverse fixture, Glenn, was one of the few games where we looked okay. Was it? That was Juric's first game, wasn't it? His first proper game in charge, I think. It was quite early doors, wasn't it?
I think it was, and then it was before he started imposing the ridiculous follow your attacker all around all over the pitch routine, which lost us a load of games after that. And we actually played quite well. From memory, they couldn't handle Amo-Ameyaw at all. And he was able to bring balls down with his chest and start attacks going. And he missed quite a few chances himself. He didn't have a great day in front of goal, but it's certainly something that we should be looking at, and I'm sure we will as long as he's fit. Play that way again. They've obviously changed manager with the disaster that was Lopetegui, who come in, signed some players, never ever looked like it was going to work. And I've got Graham Potter, so they've kind of done what we've done, is that they've gone for a manager who's a different style, and they've probably signed some players who don't suit that style. For example, James Ward-Prowse is now totally back in the fold and playing every week, whereas he was loaned out under the previous manager. So they're obviously changing from what they were earlier on in the season. But I mean, in many ways, they're like us. They can't go anywhere in the league. They're going to finish 15th or 16th.
They're just planning for next year.
Yeah, they're just getting the season done, and next year will be the time that Graham Potter gets assessed and probably got rid of, because that's what West Ham do. I mean, I look at their team. I think they've got an issue in goal, because it's either Areola, who's a bit flaky, and Fabianski, who's about 41, I think. I don't know what's happening with Lucas Paquetá, because he was going to get banned for
he is playing.
Betting on games. I know he's playing at the moment, but obviously he's obviously not going to get banned for next week. Jared Bowen, obviously always dangerous, and up front they got Evan Ferguson, who on loan from Brighton, whose career seems to have gone right off the rails. I mean, you couldn't have imagined Brighton loaning him out. So there must be something going on there for him to end up at West Ham, and he's not really hit the ground running there either. So the West Ham number 9 curse, and they've had about 700 strikers signed since Sullivan and Gold came in. So I mean, it's a team not in great form. I don't know what their result was today. I know they were playing.
They played Liverpool and lost 2-1.
They lost 2-1 for their money. Yeah.
Yeah,
they probably could have got a point, to be fair. Van Dijk scored a late winner.
Oh, fair play to them. But at the end of the day, it's another defeat. They lost the previous game as well to Wolves, so then they're not in a great trot of form. So as much as any team that we're going to play between now and the end of the season, apart from Leicester, this is probably the second most likely game for us to get anything out of, I'd have said. Maybe Fulham at home. So, we have to go there and think that we can, silence the crowd by keeping it tight and hopefully not make any substitutions. Let's leave the starting 11 on the pitch unless they're dying, and hopefully try and nick a goal. But it's we could just as easily turn up and lose 3-0. You know that. But I'm hopeful that the blueprint of the first 70 minutes yesterday holds strong for at least the start of the West Ham game.
And what have you made of West Ham, Alfie? I think Potter's probably got a bigger job on his hands than many thought. And as Glen says, it's a different style. And for them, I assume it's all about next season now and getting ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, well, Glen said he reckons they'll finish 15th or 16th. I mean, they're currently 17th, and Wolves are in unbelievable form. So I think they're probably going to finish as worst of the rest, if I'm being honest. Potter came in about the start of January, didn't he? And he's obviously a project manager, so you'd like to think they'll give him a couple of years, really, because that's what he's sort of best at. But if you look at their results, it has been inconsistent. They've lost some games, sort of 1-0. 2-0, but they've also beaten sort of Arsenal in that time. They beat Fulham 3-2. They've drawn with Aston Villa. Obviously, they beat Leicester. Everyone beats Leicester. They went all the way with Liverpool today. They've drawn with Bournemouth, drawn with Everton at Goodison Park. So, and I watched the Liverpool game today, and they've got like you obviously mentioned Ward-Prowse, but Kudus looked like a real handful today. He caused Liverpool a lot of problems. So. They've clearly got some decent players. Fulkrug, you mentioned the striker. He wins stuff in the air, which Saints don't do unless it's ball on at you. So they're going to have a problem with that. But I read an article about West Ham earlier today. I've still got it here, and the writer summed it up as West Ham can defend and attack, but not at the same time. They have an aging, unbalanced squad, the success of the Moyes era has faded. Patience is required. But they're still going to steamroll Saints because that's what happens this season. So, I'm pretty confident that it's not going to be a problem for them and this will be a turning point. But yeah, they've obviously go on.
No, I was just going to say, like the Liverpool game, I think they played them in the league and the cup this season. They conceded 5 against them both times. So actually, if you look at that game today, and I didn't see all of it, but I saw a little bit, that's obviously a mark of a bit of progress for them. And like you say, they could have got a point out of that one.
Yeah, I mean, the front three of Kudos, Jared Bowen, and Fulkrog, who, actually did look a handful, that it's really good. I say really good. Clearly, it's not, but it is really good compared to what we've been seeing this season.
Yeah.
And they're 17th. They're the worst of the rest currently, and they're probably going to finish there. This is after the top 3 in the championship steamrolled last season. Basically, apart from Leeds, we have miles better than everybody, and we're all so far off all of these Premier League teams. And I used to say West Ham 17th, Wolves 16th. They've won 4 in a row. They haven't lost in 6. Tottenham, Man United, Everton. These teams are so much better than the bottom 3, and they're the ones who are only 10, sort of 15 points ahead. So yeah, it shows how it shows the gulf, I think.
You mentioned James Ward-Prowse as well, Glenn, back in the team. Of course, he hasn't scored a free kick since he left, so that might be the headline for the weekend.
Yeah, that'd be ironic, wouldn't it? No,
get your money on it.
No, even if he scores, I hold no ill will towards James Ward-Prowse. It's our fault he's not playing for us anymore, and that's because we got relegated 2 years ago. And I didn't blame him for leaving then, and I don't blame him now. I mean, I'm well known for saying that once players leave, they're kind of dead to me. I don't really care. Most of the time when players leave us, it's because I don't care about them. It's because they've pissed me off to some degree that I just, I don't care that they've gone. But he is slightly different, and it is a shame that he had to leave, because you need that. You need someone with that connection who's been there for a long time. On a slight tangent, I was listening to an interview with Steven Gerrard the other couple of days ago, where he was talking about the importance of him and Carragher being there, being local boys, and being able to tell the rest, impart to the rest of the squad exactly what it meant. I think it's a shame that Ward-Prowse had to go, but good luck to him, and I'm pleased that he's got a manager at West Ham who clearly believes in him, and he'll get to he'll get to play under Potter for as long as he's there, I'm sure. And if he scores at the week,
first game against us, am I right or not?
Yeah,
I'm trying to think. It will be, won't it? Because he was on the bench at Forest, wasn't he? And he
didn't get on.
Yeah, and we'd already played West Ham. I don't know, I can't remember, but it will be his first game, won't it? So. Yeah. Interesting to see. Right, we'll do a few score predictions in the minute. I just want to come back to us and how we might set up, because the good news, I guess, Alfie, is that Flynn Downs is probably going to be back.
Yeah, and I think he's probably going to want to make an impression, isn't he, against West Ham? Obviously, his boy side, who he probably, had he been given reassurances, probably wouldn't have left in the summer. If Julian Lopetegui wanted to play him. So that's a positive, and it probably poses a little bit of a headache for Simon. I hope that Paul's fit. I hope he is, because I think without him, there's just no shape there. There's nothing that really works. There's nothing to play the ball into. But it means he's probably going to have to drop somebody. I thought that Cameron Archer, a lot of people say he doesn't do anything, and I totally agree, he doesn't in the 9. But I actually thought on that sort of right forward position, he looked like a bit of a threat. He's got pace to get in behind. So I would keep the same team, but with Flynn in, and I'd have to think about where you put Matty. I don't know exactly what I do. I don't know what Simon will do, but I don't think there'll be wholesale changes.
Glenn, would you make a couple of changes?
I wouldn't even have Archer on the bench, to be honest.
He's terrible. Don't get me wrong. I'm in the same camp as you. I think he's a dreadful striker.
Yeah,
but in that specific role, he was doing all right.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, simply because we got no one else to play there. But I'd rather move Fernandes to the right, because Downs will come into the centre of midfield. I think that's that's an obvious thing to do.
I still think you go with 5 at the back.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
I can't see that changing. And I think with the 2 strongest players playing in the centre of the park, I think that'll be his blueprint. And he'll hope that Camaldine, Fernandes, and Paul will be able to do something, because they won't get a lot of help from anyone else in the team. I would maybe look at Wellington at left back, because he's
Instead of Manning.
Wellington's one who needs to play. He needs to play. He needs to get used to as much exposure as we can give him to English football, because you've got to think he's going to be here next year. And I think his ceiling's a lot higher than Ryan Manning, so I think he can get better. But whereas Ryan Manning is what he is, he's okay, but he's nothing special. But that won't make a huge.
Wellington was here next year.
Really? What's that then?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, just because I think it happens quite a lot when players come over from Brazil, South America. It doesn't really work, and they sort of go straight back quite often. Yeah, this isn't any inside information or anything I've whispers I've heard, but I just get the impression he's come in, played about 4 games. 2 managers have binned him off, and I think that he'll probably go back to Brazil, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But then we're going to have a new manager, and obviously Spores is going to have his input. So who knows which players will be?
Because I agree with you, Glenn. I thought like in the games he's done all right. Wellington, Ivan Juric had he didn't have a bee in his bonnet about him, but what Ivan Juric thought about Wellington was that he's just a little bit slow in terms of reading the game, and in possession takes a little bit long for the English football. But I actually thought he did all right. He gets stuck in. He's got an eye for a delivery, and I thought he should have given more chances.
Being slow to adapt to English football, that's rich coming from Ivan Juric. Flying out loud.
But managers do this. Once they write someone off, they don't come back in at all. And I was surprised Wellington never really did. But I mean, I like Ryan Manning. I think he's a good player. I know his delivery wasn't very good on the weekend, but if he plays, I'll be still be happy with that.
No, I mean, to be honest, from the point of view of setting up to win this game, I don't think it probably makes a huge difference who plays left wing back. But apart from the point I was making is that apart from the front three, the front three are not going to have a great deal of support with the way that Rusk sets the team up. Walker Peters will always, get to the edge of the penalty area, on a few occasions. I mean, I don't see huge changes. I don't see Tyler Devlin coming in, for example. I think he'll be on the bench again, and I can see, Fernandez, Sulemana, and Amo-Ameyaw being up front. That if Paul doesn't make, I mean, Paul is the sort of player who looks like he needs to be 100% fit to be in any way effective, and he was obviously carrying the ankle injury into the game, and obviously aggravated it. So hopefully he's 100% fit. But I don't know who.
That's actually one of the last things Ivan said. So I mean, that's a spot on analysis. That's one of the last things Ivan ever said was that if Paul Amo-Ameyaw is not 100% fit, he's terrible, basically. I think you're right about that.
Amazing.
But then you got the choice of who do you play up front. You've got
that's the
Archer
worry. You're gonna have Archer.
Well, it would have to be Archer, wouldn't it? Because Stewart's not ready, unless you do some sort of false 9 thing, which never works. So not for us. So we got to put all our hopes on Paul Amo-Ameyaw being fit.
My word, that sums up the season in a nutshell, doesn't it?
Yeah,
all the hopes are on Paul Amo-Ameyaw being fit, and I guess probably another half hour for Ross Stevens, maybe.
Yeah.
Just in terms of score predictions, credit to producer Alex, who got 3 points for last week. If you're watching the live stream on Sunday night, stick your score predictions for the West Ham game into the comments on there. Glenn, do you want the 3-1, or are you going to let someone else have that?
No, I'm going to go mad and predict 0-0.
This could be the one where we get the point.
Yeah, I mean, predicting 0-0, you know you're out of the running as soon as the first goal goes in. So that gets it over with. No, I just have a feeling we're going to go out there and defend the living hell out of it.
Obviously, we're not going to score. So.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. But I think we're going to really dig in. I just think West Ham will get a little bit frustrated, and I could maybe see us holding on for a 0-0. But I mean, I'll be terrified every time 70 minutes and Saints are making a substitution. You'd be thinking, oh my word, what are they going to do? So no, I'll go for 0-0. I think I had 2-0 to Villa, which, and I was in that until those 3 idiots just didn't react when the Ramsdale saved the penalty.
That was you screaming more than anyone else.
Cheers, lads. Well done.
Alfie?
I think I'll go for
share the optimism.
No, not quite. Of course not. I'd love to be wrong, but no, definitely not. I will go for a 1-0 West Ham. The only one thing to watch potentially was the left wing back today against Liverpool was a young lad named Ollie Scarles, and he had a difficult task ahead of him, obviously up against Mohamed Salah and Conor Bradley. But they brought him off after about 55 minutes, and he did have a difficult afternoon. He wasn't really fully at the races. I appreciate that we do not have anybody of the quality like that. But maybe that's a key battle down that right hand side. Kyle Walker-Peters obviously looking to play for a move, maybe to West Ham as well. They looked at him last summer. They wanted him, so maybe it's one for him to try and make an impression.
Well, the rumor this week was that half the team are going to West Ham, aren't they? It could be.
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, I mean, obviously, careful of source and whatnot. I don't know exactly where that came from, but I think it was Aaron Rams. Was it? Yeah,
it was
Aaron Ramsdale, Harwood-Bellis, Kyle Walker-Peters, and Tyler Dibbling. So I can imagine maybe 2 of those might end up there, but it's not before, is it? It never happens.
No, absolutely. Couple of bits before we finish. I just want to get your thoughts on the 21s as well, Alfie, because I know you've watched a bit of their football this season. They finished their regular Premier League 2 season. I think it was a goalless draw, wasn't it, away at Derby? But that means that they get a home draw in the playoffs. So I don't really understand how it all works. So I'm hoping
a little bit convoluted. I'll keep it simple. The last game of the season, they drew 0-0 with Derby. They pretty much have a home draw in the playoffs, unless Newcastle win away at Man City, who are the runaway league leaders. So if Newcastle win at Man City, they'll go out of the top 8 and they'll play away. But that's Monday evening, so hopefully they'll play at home. But what it means is that should that happen, Saints will have a Premier League Cup semi-final at St Mary's and a playoff round of 16 game in the league at St Mary's start of next month. So if anyone wants to go and watch some decent football, which you've been starved of this year, there's a chance to do so. So good luck to them in that.
We might actually see a win, Glenn. That'd be nice.
It would be, but every time, when I go to football grounds, my team don't win.
Stay away.
Stay away.
Yeah. Not when I watch the women's team, they lost. So watch the men's team, they lose all the time. So yeah, I won't hold my breath if I go.
We cracked it. Maybe we cracked it. The other appointment this week, Alfie, just a quick word on Norwich City's assistant head of recruitment. Is it Mariana Nisataki has joined. Lots of different titles that were being bandied around, weren't there? First of all, they thought it was going to be Sport Republic, and then actually turns out she's going to be based at Staplewood and working with the new Look recruitment team. So an early change there as we head into that crucial summer.
Yeah, I think she's come in as head of talent acquisition directly with the Saints Academy. So, we're talking sort of players 16 to 21 years old. So that sort of, I guess, Sam Amo, Jada Magoma style move, I think is, what they were trying to do. But from what I know of Mariella, she was at Norwich City for about 8 years. She was assistant head of recruitment for the last couple of years. But I think she signed Emi Buendia, who they then sold to Aston Villa for a lot of money. And she signed Gabrielle Sara, who I thought was a really good player and still plays for them. So she's become quite, I suppose, synonymous with their South American sort of scouting regime. So it'd be interesting to see if she brings that sort of expertise over. On the job advert, I think it sort of said the market's specialised. They're looking at Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, and England and Scotland stuff. And we know about the Irish because they signed quite a few Irish lads in the last couple of years. But I'm sure with the expertise she'll have, maybe we'll see some South Americans coming over at the age of 18 as well, potentially.
It doesn't really affect the first team, does it, Glenn? But I assume we're going to see some more appointments in that department very soon, just to try and appease the fans, and they need to strike early. And of course, there'd be season tickets they need to start selling soon. So,
yeah,
positive news is what we need.
I don't think appeasing the fans is really on the agenda with regards to building the recruitment team, but they clearly need to move on from the rotten recruitment that we had, under Russell Martin. Mowbray and maybe Mr. Phil Parsons was involved as well. They need to move on from that and get specialists in, and we have to trust Jonas Sports to do that. And anyone who does come in, you'd like to think had been ratified by him. And he talked at great, he was very purposeful when he's talked about his responsibility and how the buck stopped with him. So. Hopefully this is the start of him backing his words up, because I don't know if this was his appointment or if this was someone else's, but it's it's going to be his neck on the block if it doesn't work out. But someone coming in at the level that she's coming in at, you've only got to provide, you know, we've only got to sign 2 or 3 players on her remit, and maybe only one of them, you know, become a first team player for it to be deemed a success. So yeah, so hopefully it works out, and you know, we see some successes playing for the underage teams, and then and next year, of course, it's going to be, if we do sign someone who's 17, 18 from South America, and they do well in the under 21s, it's going to be easier to promote them into the into the squad for a championship game than it would be for a Premier League game. So yeah, bring it on.
If we get rid of the deadwood, but that's a podcast for another day, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Thanks for joining us tonight. Don't forget, you can follow the Total Saints podcast on all the social media platforms. Just have a search for @TotalSaintsPod on there. We've also got a new look website. There's a merch store on there too. Head to totalsaints.co.uk where you can find out more. And as I mentioned earlier, we're also on Patreon. That's where you can support the podcast with your monthly contributions. You head to patreon.com/Total Saints podcast. And each of the tiers comes with some different perks, including shouts at the end of the podcast for any of the Patreons in our Francis Benali or our Mick Shannon tier. So roll call. Thank you very much to Dave Melton, Andy Hollis, Anthony Thompson, Gavin Ford, James Harron, Nicky Nicholson, Southampton MY, Drew Dyer, and James Kibbe. They're all in our Francis Benali tier. And also thanks to Colt Baker, Dave Ernsberger, Nick Hingston, Phil Cook, Nick Reed, Phil Horstrup, Matt Hall, Mark Littlewood, Mike Etheridge, James Bobin, John Bevan, and Liam Dempsey, who are in our Mick Shannon tier. Thank you as well to Paul Castle Associates and our friends at Steamtown Brewery for sponsoring TSP this season. Thank you to Alfie and to Glen for joining us tonight. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will see you again.